Good. Well, good afternoon. This is Senator Jennifer McClellan, and I call the working group number 3, the history of lynching in Virginia of the MLK Commission to order. This is a bit unusual for us in that we are meeting virtually with the live stream. We normally have the live stream, but usually we are meeting in person. And so we are all getting used to the new reality, and hopefully not too distant future, we will be back in person meeting at the Pocahontas building. As usual, we like to kick things off rather than just doing the standard roll call by having each of the members and our guests to introduce themselves. I will call on, we normally go in order as people are sitting on the dais, but today we will go in the order that you are on my screen. And I will ask for members of the working group or members of the, everybody, when I call you, just introduce yourself. If you're a staff member, you can say you're a staff member. If you're a member of the working group or commission, let us know your name, where you're from. If you're a member of the legislature, where you represent, and then that you are a member of the working group and or the commission. And so I'm going to start with Gianluca.
Hi, this is Professor Gianluca De Fazio, Justice Studies Department at James Mason University, and I'm a member of the History of Lynching Working Group. Thank you.
Zan?
Did you say Zan?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I'm Zan Nelson. I live in Culpeper, and I'm a member of the working group and ready to talk today about an event next year and about the website.
Great. All right, Preston?
Hello, I'm Preston Mitchell from Wise County. Just recently located last month to Bristol, but I am the co-chair of the Community Remembrance Project, which has been working for the last couple of years on the lynchings in Wise County.
Thank you. Brenda?
Did you say Brenda?
I did.
Okay. I'm Brenda Edwards, and I'm a member of the working group.
Well, Brenda's being modest. Brenda was, before she retired, the lead staff member for legislative services for the commission. So she is actually our institutional memory. Hannah and then Lance.
Hi, I'm Hannah Ayers. I'm a documentary filmmaker based here in Richmond and a member of the working group.
I'm Lance Warren. I'm a member of the working group and a documentary filmmaker based here in Richmond. A few years ago, Hannah and I made a documentary about the history of lynching in the American South.
Dr. Ayers.
Hi, I'm Ed Ayers. I'm a historian and former president at the University of Richmond, and I live in Charlottesville and in Richmond. Thanks.
All right, Rabbi Aft. Oh, you're muted.
I have to, I just unmuted. I'm Bruce Aft. I'm a Rabbi Emeritus of the congregation in Springfield, Virginia, and am currently a visiting scholar at George Mason's Carter Center for Peace and Conflict Resolution, and the chair of the Black Jewish Dialogue, and eager to be part of the working group. I'm part of the commission. By being here, I guess I'm part of the working group. So thanks for having me.
You are indeed. Dr. Lee.
There. Hello. Good to be with you. I live in Chesterfield and teach at the University of Richmond, and I'm conducting research there on race. And I'm also involved in community activist groups.
Thank you. Dr. Schmidt.
Hi, I'm Jelaine Schmidt from Charlottesville. I teach religious studies at the University of Virginia and direct the Democracy Initiative's Memory Project. and I co-founded Monumental Justice Virginia last year that lobbied to change the monuments law.
Thank you. Dr. Gibson.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Matthew Gibson, Executive Director of Virginia Humanities in Charlottesville. I'm a member of the commission and of the working group.
Thank you. Dr. Kimball. We have a lot of doctors, but Dr. Kimball.
Hi, I'm Greg Kimball. I'm the Director of Public Services and Outreach at the Library of Virginia in Richmond, and I'm a member of the work group.
And Dr. Douglas.
Hi, I'm Andrea Douglas, and I'm Executive Director of the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center in Charlottesville.
Thank you. Senator Locke.
Okay. I am Mamie Locke, and I represent the 2nd Senate District, a member of the working group and member of the commission.
Okay. Let me scroll through. We have Senator Eben.
Hi, Adam Eben, 30th Senate District, representing parts of Alexandria, Arlington, and Fairfax. And I'm a new member of the commission, but I have an interest in this topic. We had some lynchings in Alexandria that we're going to be commemorating or have started commemorating, and it's important to participate.
Okay. And are there any other members of the working group or the commission before I turn it over to staff? If not, Amigo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Amigo Wade. I'm Acting Director of the Division of Legislative Services and have been scrambling for years to try to do some of what Brenda was doing when she had very big shoes to fill.
As a matter of fact, so big we needed 2 staff members. So Lily.
Lily Jones with Legislative Services and staff for the commission.
And Lindley.
Hi, Lindley Griffin. I'm staff. I work for the Senate Clerk's office.
And Glenn.
Hey, this is Glenn Robertson with Senate IT, just monitoring the Zoom meeting for y'all.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll remind everyone that we are live streaming and that the video will be archived, but wanted to thank everyone for joining today. We are going to talk about our action plan for 2021 for what we will do to raise awareness of and help communities remember, and in some cases have historic markers or monuments related to racial terror lynchings that occurred in their locality. And for the benefit of our newer members and those that may be watching that aren't familiar with the working group, this working group was kicked off after an idea really from Zan Nelson and really dovetailed with and build on work done by the Equal Justice Initiative through their Lynching in America report, through the museum and monument and the monuments that they have to bring back to communities to recognize the victims of racial terror lynchings across the country, many of which were here in Virginia. And so we, at the commission, initiated at Zan's suggestion, a resolution where the Commonwealth expressed profound regret for racial terror lynchings that occurred here in Virginia. And that resolution, through that resolution, the General Assembly really charged the commission with compiling information on all of the recorded lynchings that we could find in the Commonwealth, to compile that information in one place, to work with localities who may want to participate in the EJI Community Remembrance Project to bring their monuments home, or otherwise acknowledge and have community conversations about lynchings that had occurred and how it impacts those communities today. And then to work with the Department of Historic Resources to have highway markers at known lynching sites. And we have had we had some events last year. This year, COVID prevented us from doing too much this year. But we do now have 2 state highway markers at the sites of lynchings in the Commonwealth. And we also have additional markers that are EJI markers. So I believe in Charlottesville, Charles City County, and Harrisonburg, we now have historic markers recognizing lynchings that occurred in those sites. We have done, either we have sponsored or other localities have sponsored events in Harrisonburg, in Culpeper, in Alexandria, and in Charlottesville to have a dialogue about the incidents that occurred there. So today, what we wanted to do was talk about our schedule and formatting for programming in 2021. And we have invited Preston to talk about the activities that are going on in Wise County, which is a county that had probably the highest number of lynchings that occurred. If I'm remembering that correctly, I think 11 total. Is that Wise, or was that?
That's Tazewell County.
That's Tazewell, so okay.
That's Tazewell County. There were 3 in Wise County.
Okay. Thank you for that correction. As soon as I said that, I knew I misspoke. And then we will go over, have an update on our website. And then at our last meeting, we talked about potentially having a student essay and art contest. So we will talk about, the last time we did that was for the commemoration of the sesquicentennial of the Emancipation Proclamation. So we've got some information about how that program worked. And so that's our agenda for the day. And so what I want to do first, any questions, and feel free if you have questions or a comment. Normally when we're in the room, you just kind of shout out Madam Chair. As long as you do that in an orderly fashion, I should be able to find you on the screen. But feel free to ask any questions right now. And I see Dr. Lee has one.
Madam Chair, I'd like to put forth an idea that I think we can put into motion regarding the teaching, and a recent report that was released by the Governor's Commission on Teaching African American History. So when the time is appropriate, you'd let me know. That'd be great.
Okay, when we get to other business, I will turn to you for that. Okay, so first up is we decided we would do a Richmond event in the spring that Lance is taking the lead on, and I think he has an update for what he is proposing we do for the Richmond area.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So just to circle back briefly to what we had talked about at that last meeting, I'm just going to bring up my notes on that so that I'm staying on track with that. Senator McClellan had suggested scheduling an event for March or April, something again in the Richmond area that would elevate the goals and the purpose of this working group. I suggested taking the lead on that, and working with Lily and the senator, we identified Saturday, April 10th as a possible date. As part of that conversation about what the event could look like, the conversation in our last working group meeting, Delegate McQuinn had emphasized that she felt that oral history should really be a key component of it. And so we thought about how that could be incorporated. And then, of course, broadly speaking, an ongoing goal of the work group, and this is, of course, part of the resolution adopted in 2018, is that education really be key to the work that we're trying to spur. So with those things in mind, the idea that we put together that we're thinking about right now and would certainly love feedback on would be a day, Saturday, April 10th, with 4 components. So there'd be a morning teacher workshop in which an expert educator would lead a short lesson on how to teach about the history of lynching in Virginia and more broadly in the American South. That we hope humbly suggested could be grounded in the film that we produced several years ago on the history and legacy of lynching in the South, particularly because that film has a community, an education guide, teacher guide, classroom guide for it. So there's a curriculum built in for that film. After the morning teacher workshop, there would be an afternoon walking tour in Richmond at selected sites that illustrate the history of lynching and or resistance to racial violence in Richmond. Sites could include the African Burial Ground with a focus on Gabriel's Rebellion, the American Civil War Museum with a specially curated tour for this event, the Maggie A. Walker National Historical Site, again, with a specially designed program for this event, and the Executive Mansion, where Virginia Humanities, of course, is working with the First Lady to illustrate the lives of enslaved and other people of African descent who have made the home what it is. And then in the evening, we would do a screening and discussion of that film, An Outrage, about the history and legacy of lynching in the South. That would be grounded in a community discussion guide for that was produced with funding from Virginia Humanities and in collaboration with the Virginia Library Association. We recently did a workshop on this for the American Library Association that was well received, grounded in that discussion guide. So again, that'd be a community level kind of generally adult audience sort of virtual get together. And then throughout the day, while all this is underway, what we would be spurring is individuals could conduct interviews with elders in their families to learn about and preserve their memories and family histories pertaining to the history of lynching and racial violence in Virginia. In an effort to enable and spur that, we could come up with a one sheet of basic, very accessible technical pointers on how to do that effectively. Generally speaking, using a cell phone to capture that those memories, preserve those memories in a way that could be archived in an appropriate state archive to help see out one of the key purposes of the work group, as Senator McClellan mentioned a moment ago. So that would be the idea, that this Saturday, April 10th, would really try to check all those boxes on the education front, on getting people out into the community to kind of see certain sites in the capital city in a new way, getting people to come together virtually around a film that can be used as a hub for talking about this in a bigger way, and throughout to make it a day in which we're really gathering memories, that priceless oral history that is contained within the minds and hearts of the elders in our communities, really preserving that so that this day can be generative as well as a time to come together.
And I think since we do not know yet, while it looks like there will be a COVID vaccine coming, we don't yet know whether we will still be in a state of emergency and under the governor's orders for events to be 25 people or less. So I think the idea, if I remember correctly, Lance, is this, as much of this would be planned for as virtual as possible. And I think the caveat would be the walking tour. We would probably have to figure out how to do that safely and with 25 people, but we probably could do a virtual component, assuming that those sites are open in April, but that's something we would account for in our planning.
Indeed. Yes, Madam Chair, the assumption is that we won't be able to do things like normal, or rather what was normal a year ago, but rather in the normal way we've been doing them for a few months.
Okay. Dr. Gibson, did I see? Yeah.
Yeah, Madam Chair, and this is actually for Lance and Hannah, thinking about the Richmond event and the walking tour, just thinking about some of the sites that maybe we could actually promote and engage in virtually using 360 technology, things like that, to share screens and sort of take people on a virtual walking tour of those sites of resistance could be useful. And I know that a lot of the work that the folks at Encyclopedia Virginia have done with creating 360 tours could, if those are not documented already using the technology, I'm sure we could figure out a way to create those and use those in that frame of reference. So.
I love that idea, Matthew, and I think that highlights something that many of us on this commission, on this working group know, which is that there are so many assets and resources in this state among people who are connected to this commission, and in the service of the purpose of this working group. Often those resources and people just need to be drawn together. So indeed, I think if there's a way to amplify that sort of really brilliant work that I know has already achieved national recognition, but probably a lot of Virginians still need to be introduced to it, and in this new light, that would be great.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Dr. Lee.
Perhaps this might be the time to bring up what I've been just beginning to think through. When Lance spoke of that first group meeting in the mornings, what was that again, Lance?
A teacher workshop.
I'm thinking, how can we look at engaging teachers in the study of history, how to teach history of lynching, but also to make it more like a web so that they can see where the highway marker signs are, where the places are, perhaps the churches that people went to. How can they see the landscape that they don't see now? And so engaging all of the disciplines as much, showing teachers how they can engage the disciplines in teaching this history. So that would be a workshop specifically for teachers about the pedagogical process.
I think those are excellent ideas, and it echoes something and brings to mind something that we had the opportunity to talk about in touring our film all around the country a couple of years ago to 80 sites, which was that when it comes to teaching this history, the opportunities are often embedded within the curriculum in ways that maybe are not immediately evident. So many teachers will find that they're teaching about Ida B. Wells or W.B. Du Bois, or here in Virginia, hopefully, John Mitchell Jr. Well, many of the reasons that we know about those people are grounded in awful histories and realities of lynching that they dedicated their lives to ending. And so I think that's, hopefully in the spirit of what you're saying, is a way to kind of illuminate for teachers the opportunities that they already have in their curriculum. It's not another thing to teach, but another way to teach.
Dr. Ayers?
We have the advantage, too, of lynching is now written into the curriculum frameworks of the state, and it wasn't last time we met. So the African American History Education Commission succeeded in integrating lynching as a specific topic for both Virginia and U.S. history, which creates both an opportunity and a need to amplify both what Laurinette and Lance just said, is that these curriculum frameworks were introduced this fall. And so teachers will be eager to find techniques and strategies and information to teach that effectively. So that's a kind of lends urgency and purpose to this aspect of what Lance has proposed.
Okay. Dr. Lee, you look like you want to say something else.
Yes. And perhaps this report, thank you, Ed, for your participation on that. Dr. Cassandra Newby-Alexander as well is on as a co-chair there. Perhaps we could think about having a webinar first to introduce teachers to the report, and then look at the ways that they can engage with those who helped make this report, and then move into perhaps another session on how to teach using some of the new information they've learned here.
And that wouldn't need to wait for any place-based effort. That's something that the commission or the working group could sponsor on a statewide level. I'm sure that there's several people on this call who would be happy to help enable that. And so that we could do that early in the new year, if that made sense to people, a sort of a workshop on a Saturday or of how to teach the new curriculum frameworks about lynching. And it'd be a way to sort of call the Commonwealth's attention to the existence and work of this group, but also be of great help to teachers who will be looking for that.
Dr. Douglas, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to also add just another way that, and at least we've been trying to do it. We did our pilot program of embracing our narratives this last summer, which was a teacher training program that focused directly on Charlottesville's local history. And we entered into that conversation by talking about the sort of moment of the development of the start of the Black middle class around 1890s. Our lynching is in 1898. So placing it as a dichotomy between the growth of African-American prosperity and the ways in which that prosperity was constricted or restricted through the sort of racial terror fear. Lots of as everyone has said, a lot of that 1890 history really sort of sits itself right on top of the ability for Black people to create new industry and new opportunity for themselves. And so that's one of the ways that we addressed it as well.
Okay. And I can also follow up with the Department of Ed. They do have, and one of our longtime work group members who I think was on every work group the commission has ever had, Betsy Barton, who used to run the trainings for teachers that specifically focused on history and humanities issues, and is unfortunately no longer with us. She passed away about a year ago, but her successor we can certainly talk to about incorporating this into any workshops they already have planned, or we could maybe turn this week to a partnership with them as well. So Lily and Amigo, let's follow up with the Department of Ed on that, and then we can give everybody an update, by email before our next meeting. All right. In the interest of time, because we do have a full commission, the full commission will be joining us at 2. So Dr. Newby Alexander, who I don't see on, has taken the lead on a Hampton Roads event in late summer. But again, I don't see her. So unless
I'm actually here.
Oh, I'm sorry. You snuck in on me. There you go. All right. Well, first, if you could just, for those watching the live stream, if you could introduce yourself and where you're from, and then jump right into your update.
Sure. I'm Cassandra Newby Alexander, Professor of History and Dean of the College of Liberal Arts at Norfolk State University in Norfolk, Virginia. And the update I have is that we are scheduling it for early September. So we're looking at the second week of September. And right now we are still looking at it being a virtual meeting. I think that's probably the safest way to plan this. And we're reaching out to a number of organizations, including the Urban League of Hampton Roads, the NAACP, the faith communities. In fact, I've talked with several different faith community groups, so that we have a wide smattering, but we're also going to be reaching out to universities in the area to engage them. And I have a call in to the Inclusive Communities organization that I think would want to be a part of this. So there are probably going to be at least 10 different organizations that we'll be reaching out to participate. The idea is to have about 4 or 5 panelists who will talk about some of their research or some of the issues, and then really talk about what can the community do to recognize this and to make this a permanent part of how memory is kept for that community, so that people aren't just having casual memories. And also the concept of lynching, how are we going to really define it? And some people are defining it a lot more broadly than someone, back from the 1930s moving backward, or even the 50s. But, the lynching can be metaphoric. The lynching can include the permanent denial of rights of people who were accused, convicted of a felony and put away, essentially forever. They don't have access to education, jobs, those kinds of things in the way that others have. So we're looking a little bit more broadly, and I would say by the end of January, I should have everybody lined up with some ideas of how we're going to approach this.
Great. Okay. Any questions for Dr. Newby Alexander?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Evan.
I'm just wondering, you mentioned that you're planning virtual, but if the vaccine is widely available and the state of emergency is over, will we convert that?
I've been sort of debating that, and it would be nice to kind of do a little of both. My thought is that if we can have a face-to-face, I would still want to have a larger audience be able to participate virtually. And I think that so many of us have gotten accustomed to Zoom that we will probably get a lot more buy-in if we are also having it done both ways.
That makes sense. Thank you.
And to that end, pre-COVID, when we did a series of beloved community conversations as part of our commemoration of Dr. King's, the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination, which were in-person events, but we had them recorded professionally through I guess they're VPN now, the old PBS. And live streamed on our website, and those videos archived both on our Facebook page and on our website. So I think we've gotten into the habit of that. And so any in-person events that we do, we will at a minimum have a live stream component, and then we can just decide whether we incorporate a Zoom component as well. All right. If there are no other questions, then Zan is working on an event in Culpeper for November.
Sorry, I had muted my thing. Yes, and we're looking at the dates. I wanted to be a little bit flexible with the commission, so we're targeting around the anniversary death of Allie Thompson, which is the Monday before Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving week is not a good week for this. So we're looking at the week before or the week after, which is November 15th and 16th as possible dates, a Monday and a Tuesday. Or the after Thanksgiving, Monday and Tuesday are the 29th and 30th. I think these dates being during the week allow us to get a larger turnout actually than with conflicts that often happen on Saturdays and Sundays. And I have spoken with an individual about a location it has a good large capacity. It is the center for one of the largest faith-based groups within the African American community in this region. It's the Wayland Blue Ridge Association Center. They have a seating capacity of about 350, and they have, which we would love to have that many. They also have audio, and they have a stage, which would enable a panel kind of discussion. And I like everybody's ideas so far that I've heard, and actually they've given me some more. I certainly concur with Cassandra about having, hopefully by the end of November, we can have an in-person gathering, but I would like to also offer the virtual for people who can't get out. It will be dark because we're talking about an evening thing in order to get people who are either in school or are working. Our attempt in Culpeper is to do a multi-county area because there's a lot of interaction in our planning district, which is Madison, Culpeper, Orange, Rappahannock, and Fauquier County. We know there were lynching events in Rappahannock, Culpeper, Fauquier, and I believe there's one in Madison. There is no known documented one in Orange, but it doesn't mean they haven't had some of those kind of issues that Cassandra was talking about. So ours is probably a lot farther back, if you will, than what Lance talked about in Richmond or what other communities have already established. We are still in a learning basis, both learning about lynching and not just the act of lynching, but the kinds of things that enabled it in a community, both before and after, and the fact that the perpetrators were not prosecuted, and importantly, what kind of legacy this lent to the African American community going forward. And that was a huge part of any community. Okay, so it's educational in the sense that we want to talk about at least an overview of that. We also want to talk about at least, again, an introduction of those that we know were lynched in these particular communities. Then we want to invite people from these different counties to come forward and talk about what they want to see happen in their communities. From that point, we then can offer to them some options of what's available to them. One of the outcomes of this that would be really nice is to create sort of a listserv, if you will, of people who want to stay in touch with one another, with other communities that have been successful in addressing these issues. One of the other things that I would like to see happen with this event is to include all the organizations that have been mentioned, whether it's faith-based or civil or NAACP, but also try and draw in the young people that were very involved in the Black Lives Matter protests. And we had those in Culpeper, Madison, Orange. They were all peacefully done. These young people were very enthusiastic about making some changes. And I want to keep them engaged. Part of what they need is our help in their knowing the history. So that's sort of where we're coming from. Where I would leave it today is to have those at the commission get back to me as early as possible about which dates they might prefer, and then we can lock something in and move forward.
Okay, I would say if everyone could tell us, and you can either email Lily or put in the chat if there's a date you would like to avoid. And then Dan, I think with that, we'll kind of defer to which date you think would work best for you. November 15th is my anniversary, so I would prefer it not be that day, but if that's the only day that works, that's the only day that works. Okay, and then Hannah is taking the lead on a Danville event.
Yes, plans are moving forward with that. We have, we're fortunate to be partnering with History United and the Danville Museum of Fine Arts and History. And, I see this as both building on all of the great work that they've done in the past few years, but kind of like what Zan is saying, I think it could also be kind of a foundational event in that I'm not aware of any current community efforts to document and research lynching in Danville. But Carice Luck, the program coordinator of History United, has been doing some research on the lynching of Walter Clark, as well as a woman named Margaret Lashley, who was not technically lynched in the sense that we think of it, but was executed by the state after an unfair trial. And she would be open to doing a presentation about both of those individuals, and maybe in addition to doing a film screening and having someone from the museum offer advice on how to teach this history to students. In terms of timing, we'd initially thought about April, but thinking about the calendar of the commission and also a key audience being teachers, I'm thinking perhaps the summer would be better, maybe June or July. Teachers might be available for some professional development opportunities. So I'll circle back with her about timing, but I think a virtual event with film screening and some information sharing about what we know about the lynchings that happened there will be a good bet for this initial event.
All right, thanks. Any questions for Hannah?
Madam Chair.
Dr. Lee.
Hannah, let me ask, are you looking at teachers K through 12 or higher ed?
I was thinking middle and high school.
Okay. All right. And I'm thinking also, will there be opportunity for them to engage with this new report?
There should be, absolutely. Yeah. I think that should be built in.
Because I'm thinking about the idea that I had posited earlier, and if there's opportunity to fold that in, since the focus is on teachers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. And perhaps, Madam Chair, perhaps this is something Virginia Humanities will play a part in, because as we look at what our mission is, not only as a commission, but the Virginia Humanities, it is to really bring people together about these difficult subjects and to really give teachers the tools they need, would be something that Betsy Barton would have really pushed for.
Madam Chair, I just want to second what Laurinette suggested there about Virginia Humanities playing a role. I'd be more than happy to help convene a statewide, with Laurinette especially, and some of our staff, a statewide discussion and teacher workshop around the issue of the history of lynching. I think I mentioned before at one of our previous meetings, we've invited Hassan Kwame Jeffries, a professor at The Ohio State University, who's done a lot of work around teaching hard history. He hosts the Teaching Hard History podcast through the Southern Poverty Law Center. He's led a few workshops. I know he worked with the Library of Virginia at their teacher workshop over, I believe, the summer, talking about hard history in a conversation with a teacher from the Norfolk area, Chris Matthews, and working off that legacy, or maybe even inviting Hassan Kwame Jeffries back to help be a facilitator or just a speaker at one of these workshops could be really beneficial as well.
Madam Chair, we can't hear you.
Thank you. Sorry. Every time, there's always one. Well, we have a good working plan for our programming for next year. So thank you all for that. And so it looks like the first event we will have will be in April. If we're lucky, we will be able to have an in-person component, but I suspect we will all be virtual, and it's better to plan for virtual. And in the world that we're in now. So thank you all for your work on those events. Now I want to turn it over to Preston Mitchell, who Dr. DeFazio invited to talk to us about what's going on in Wise County with their community remembrance project to recognize and spread awareness about the lynchings that occurred in Wise County. So Preston, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the commission to invite me, in particular Professor DeFazio's input on that. I think we'll back up and say that the work in Wise County came as a result of a failed effort that we had in Wythe County with the lynching of Raymond Byrd. And I say that because I think what we did in Wise County, and I think maybe what I'm being invited to see how we were able to get a grassroots effort going in Wise County. I'm a retired educator on both public school and higher ed. I served in the history department at UVA Wise, but my work actually came from being a deacon in the Episcopal Church, and the Episcopal Church becoming beloved community effort from the national church. And with that, how they visited the Absalom Jones Center in Atlanta, where some pilgrimages were being made and markers being made even prior to EJI's effort. And so we targeted Wythe County and began efforts there with a local historian there, John Johnson, who was talked about in the Washington Post article last year. But we received a lot of backlash from the community, and those efforts failed. About that time in the summer of 2018, the chancellor at UVA Wise was contacted by the president in Charlottesville about their efforts in Albemarle County and suggested if we had any ideas about Wise County. And she knew of my efforts through the church, so I was invited along with the provost and the chair of the history department to work on the efforts of the 3 Wise County lynchings. And my input with that was as well, we don't need this coming straight from the college. We need to develop some grassroots efforts. And so we put together a steering committee of 23 people from the Wise County School Board, a coalition of Black churches in Wise County, 4 pastors from the churches there, the Pound Historical Society, UVA Wise, and the Wise County Episcopal Churches. And we had 23 members, 7 of which are African American, in a county which has less than 3% African American population. And so what we began to do, we began to speak to civic clubs, to churches, to historical societies, etc., and invited Professor DeFazio came down, not only to speak to the college, but he said he would like to speak to the community. So we organized a community event in the city of Norton, and he came down and spoke with that. And so we began to generate interest from this steering committee that Tom Costa, who couldn't be here, and myself serve as co-chairs. And of course, we were buoyed by, really made possible by the work of the commission through the General Assembly's resolution that came out in February of 2019. That really gave us legs to stand on. And so we went to the town councils and got their own drawn up resolutions of support for a marker from EJI and as well as the city of Norton. And our final effort is going to be the Board of Supervisors, because they would control with the marker. At the same time, we've been in concert with Equal Justice Initiative. We've met with them. We received funding, and hopefully final approval will come next week with a Zoom meeting that we're having there with EJI. So we're very excited about that, and we think it's moving forward. And at the same time doing that, we've been working on an application with the Department of Historical Resources. Their marker editorial committee met last week and gave approval. They're meeting Thursday for final approval for the lynching of Leonard Woods. And I'm going to read to you what we've sent to them. They asked for a paragraph. The lynching of Leonard Woods at Pound Gap in Wise County late in 1927 is of significant historical interest. It is generally accepted as the last documented lynching in the state of Virginia. It attracted national attention. There was a jurisdictional dispute over whether Virginia or Kentucky officials were responsible for investigating. There were conflicting accounts of Woods' alleged crime, and none of the white mob was prosecuted, despite the fact that many did not wear masks. Early the following year, Governor Harry Byrd, motivated by the adverse publicity surrounding the incident and anti-lynching editorials by Louis Jaffe of Norfolk, Bruce Crawford of Norton, and others, got the state legislature to pass an anti-lynching bill, the first of its kind in the United States. While there were other racially motivated killings in Virginia following its passage, the law spelled the end of the public, mob-initiated, ritualistic lynchings that were characteristics of many earlier lynchings in the state. This marker application is co-sponsored by the Pound Historical Society and the University of Virginia's College at Wise. It is part of a larger project working with the Equal Justice Initiative to memorialize all three Wise County lynchings. And that work that has been supported by Professor DeFazio, Tom Costa, and a group of students worked on documenting these lynchings. And it's a part of a chapter in Professor DeFazio's book that will be, I don't know when it's coming out, but a part of that book. So the effort is, and the broader effort, of course, is the educational component, which is why the Wise County schools are on board. We have 2 history teachers and a school board member on our steering committee. We do understand the changes in the SOLs that does have a part where this could be easily slid in to teaching that on the high school level. So the other 2 lynchings, is 1905 in Coburn, Virginia. Wiley Gwynn was accused of assaulting a 12-year-old girl. He was lynched pretty much on the spot, as was in 1920, David Hunt or Hurst, a coal miner, was accused of assaulting an elderly woman in Kent Junction, and he was arrested but broke out of jail and taken to the spot, either a railroad trestle or a coal temple. There's some dispute about that, where he was lynched. And of course, the 1927, when I read about the Leonard Woods, which was attended by at least 500 participants, and the next day, over 1,500 people came up to view the body of Leonard Woods, a coal miner in Kentucky, who was accused of killing a man from Coburn, Virginia. So those are the 3 lynchings. That's the work that we've done. And I think my emphasis is, how do you go from kind of the top down to get a grassroots effort to support this? And that's what we've worked very diligently on for the last 2 years, as we are moving to get these markers in place. I think probably the first one will be, of course, the Department of Transportation. That's being funded almost 80% by the Pound Historical Society. We have a woman whose father told her of going and viewing the body when he was in the 5th grade. It took 5th graders to the top of the mountain to view that charred body of Leonard Woods. So I guess if there's any questions, that's pretty much what I have to present to you all.
Thank you, Preston. Any questions? Dr. Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell, for that thorough overview. When you ask about ways to engage grassroots groups, I'm thinking about teachers. And I know you mentioned there are history teachers already involved. Do you think this might be an opportunity to have those teachers lead a group or a webinar to come in, such as we were talking about, to engage with scholars in the field and the new curriculum framework that's in this report. Would this be something that teachers would be interested in Wise County?
Well, I think so. I should have added one other component that Tom Costa, in addition to our journey to EJI, he has taken two groups of students to Montgomery. It's quite a haul, as you know, to go down there. And we actually had a planning to have members of our steering committee, not just college students, but community members, to go down there before COVID hit. Charter a bus to take down there, to have folks who normally wouldn't be sitting beside each other on the bus and going and visiting the Memorial Park and the Legacy Museum there. But very much so, I think the educational component in the schools, but even outside of the schools in the greater community. And that's why I think these markers are so important, and events that will be planned around that is the educational component.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Greg.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Mr. Mitchell. My understanding is in the case of David Hurst or Hunt, one of the few cases in Virginia where two men were convicted of his, I think it was manslaughter. And I know we do have some records in Governor Trinkle's papers. So I don't know if you haven't seen those, we'd be happy to share those.
I would check with Tom. I think he has those. One of the things with the Wise County lynchings is shortly after the first lynching, there was a man that was arrested and brought to the jail. And when a mob attempted to break them out, Sheriff A.P. Corder actually had armed deputies and killed two of the mob attempting to extricate. I think the man's name was Williams. And Sheriff Corder received a letter of commendation from the Bluefield chapter of the NAACP, recognizing him stopping the mob. But you're right, that I think is the only case in Virginia where somebody was actually served some time for a lynching, went to prison. I think it was just a year. But
yeah, I think they were pardoned really quickly. I think one was convicted of 3 years and another 2 years, but for manslaughter. I mean, obviously incredibly rare, unfortunately, that happened. But still, it's interesting. What about that community? What does that tell us about that community? It's kind of an interesting part of the story.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Preston. And are there any other questions for Preston? If not, if you could keep us posted on your progress, and particularly what's going on with the markers and when those might be unveiled, I think we would love to participate. And we invite you to participate in the working group as well, and we can keep you informed of what all we've got going on too. So
well, thank you very much. I was very happy to be here and listen in on this. Thank you.
Thank you. So real quickly, we have a couple of follow-up items from our October meeting. We had put together a subgroup that I think Zan was leading up on what we want to do with the History of Lynching Work Group's website. And Zan, if you have an update for us now, you can present it, and or we can wait until our next meeting. But I think you are still on there. There you are. Yeah, Zan, you have an update for us on? Go ahead.
Well, I think, Madam Chair, that the best thing, because of timing, Lily was kind enough to send out sort of a summary that I wrote up. And these are the issues that I believe we really need to chew on. I don't know that there's enough time today, but what I would like to ask those that are present is, I think it would be helpful if they would send me and or send Lily, and Lily can send to me their thoughts on these issues. And primarily, the question I raised is, I mean, we have something on the website now, But what we're talking about is, do we want to have something more? And so what I had said is, will it be a static or an interactive website? And I think those two issues, those two different platforms, are extremely important because of staffing and money and so forth and so on. And because that gets to the second question, is who will manage it? Do we farm it out to another agency or another group if it's interactive? And the biggest issue about interactive, obviously, and I go into some detail in the email that Lily sent out for me, there's a lot more we can do with the interactive platform, but it requires possibly even daily management, because what we all know is the worst thing in the world is to offer somebody a chance to make a comment or ask a question or make a request and then not be able to respond to them in a timely way. So I think we need to defer this to another meeting, but it would help that next meeting if we could get some feedback from the members by email.
Okay, we will put that at the top of the agenda for our next meeting. And in the meantime, if the working group members can either, I would say email Lily and copy Zan so that we have, both have a record of it, and then we can compile that and have that discussion at our next meeting and make some decisions at that meeting.
That'd be great.
Okay, thank you. And then the last item, we had some discussion about whether we wanted to do an art and essay contest similar to one that we did around the sesquicentennial of the Emancipation Proclamation. And we were able to sort of go back and get some information on that contest. It was, and Brenda Edwards is on, so if I say anything incorrectly, I invite her to correct me. But it was a contest that was open to middle and high school students. We had a superintendent's memo that went to all of the middle and high schools, informing them of the contest and sort of went through that route to publicize it to the schools. Had a submission form, and then we had an essay component, we had a art component, and then the full commission selected winners, but all of the art and essays became property of the commission, and I believe we still have them. Although I'm not exactly sure where they are in our move. I don't know if they're in DLS's office, but they did become property of the commission. Many of them were posted on our website. So if the working group would like to do an essay contest, I guess the real question is that something we want to do for second semester of this school year, or do we want to wait and do it in the 2021-2022 school year? And so, I'll kind of leave that up to the working group right now. Is that something we want to recommend for second semester? Yes. Okay. I heard Zan first.
Okay. I think it's a great idea. However, because of the nature of the topic, I think it's important to wait until these students are better grounded through what we're talking about, the teachers being able to convey to them the understanding of how it happened and what happened, rather than just dealing with the horror of the terror. I think there needs to be more context available to these young people. That's my 2 cents. So I would vote for waiting.
Okay, and then I saw Dr. Douglas raise her hand, and then Dr. Lee. You're on mute.
Sorry. I agree with waiting as well. I know for at least in Charlottesville, the sort of way that the schools are operating now, whether they're going to be open or not open, there's and to try and engage a new idea at this time would maybe make some teachers' heads explode. Yeah, so waiting for 2021 would allow us certainly to do all the work, but I think there's so much uncertainty right now that the success of a contest, you know, we were successful largely because we came back from that pilgrimage and moved right away into that. So we didn't have a lot of time lag, but I really believe that right now it would be hard. And we're even trying to work with EJI to do another contest, and we're having a difficulty getting response from schools around it. It just feels a little bit too much for them right now.
Okay. Dr. Lee, did you want to add something?
Yes, in addition to context, and perhaps more so, I believe there's passion. The students and teachers are dealing with unprecedented circumstances, and many we don't even know about. And it really highlights the need to educate the teachers first to get these the webinars or trainings or whatever we can do to them as soon as possible so that they can be prepared to teach. And it gives them more time to deal with what they're going through now.
Okay. Since we are running a little bit long, is there anybody who disagrees with waiting?
No, could I add just one thing?
Yes.
This is Cassandra, and that is, as we think about a essay contest, could we expand that to be much more of a multimedia? Could be poetry, it could be art, it could be film, but something that really kind of strikes at the way in which a lot of young people are communicating their ideas. And I think that we will get a lot more enthusiasm and of a wider variety of projects coming our way.
Okay. Well, it sounds like the.
Chairman?
I'm sorry. Yes. Was that Brenda?
Yes. I would suggest that you wait until next year. We didn't have COVID when the commission did the commemoration of the Emancipation Proclamation. But it took the commission a full year, to pull it all together because it was interdisciplinary. We involved, our partner was the Department of Education, Betsy Barton, as you might remember, Chev, the 136 school divisions, institutions of higher ed. So it took about a year before we could pull that off. And that included teachers, that included parents, and we had to thread the subject matter through the various disciplines that are taught in the school. So you're going to need at least a year to pull this off. And the commission does own all of the artwork except for one Richmond school that wanted it returned. But we had guidelines, which Lily probably found in the files that I left. But all of the pictures, all of the artwork, some was dance. We use communicative arts. So all of that is on the commission's website. And that was done by design. Partner who did that was the Richmond Symphony. And so we tried to maximize the funds that the commission had as well. We got a lot of in-kind services, but those resources for teachers, for students, for parents, for the community. You need time to pull that together.
Yeah, I think we are all agreed. I don't see anyone waiting to express a contrary view. But since it was raised at the last meeting, I at least wanted to ask the question. And so I think with the idea that it'll take a year, we probably should plan, and I can begin the conversations with the Department of Education on the logistics of it. But I think probably planning for second semester of next school year. The last essay contest we did it in second semester. The superintendent's memo went out in January. And so I think that probably will make sense here, but I will initiate those conversations, and then at our next meeting, give you all an update on sort of where that is, and we can flesh that out a little further. So with that, and Lorna, I think we had addressed a little bit the idea of how to incorporate teaching this history in our earlier discussions. We can also lay that out as a separate agenda item for our next meeting. But in the interest of time, since we are running over and I see members of the full commission have joined, if there is no other pressing business for the working group, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the working group. I'd like to give everybody maybe a 5-minute break, and then we can convene the full commission at about 2:18. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, thank you. Well, we will convene the full commission right at 2:18. And for the working group members, you are welcome to stay. But if you have other scheduling matters or tired of Zoom, you can feel free to drop off, and we will be live streamed, and the live stream will be archived on the Senate website, so you can watch the full commission later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Stanley.
He is logged in.
Okay. Senator Eben.
He's logged in and looks like he stepped away.
Okay. Delegate Tyler. Delegate McQuinn. Delegate Carr.
Present.
Delegate Cole.
Present.
Delegate Wright. I got you, Delegate Wright.
Like.
Delegate Ferris. Juanita Owens Wyatt. Kirk Schroeder. Ronald Carey.
Here.
Ruth Aft.
Here.
Laurinette Lee.
Present.
Edward McCoy. Matthew Gibson.
Present.
Ricardo Brown.
Here.
Senator Locke.
Present.
Senator McClellan.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to the December meeting of the King Commission. Apologize, we ran a little long with the Lynching in Virginia work group. I think you all heard much of that discussion, and so I will save the update for the end so that we can make sure we get to all of the other business that we have today. The first item we want to talk about is give you all an update on the status of the Emancipation and Freedom Monument. And first on that, I'd like to ask Joe D'Amico to give an update on the Browns Island site and our coordination with the City of Richmond and Venture Richmond. And Joe, as part of that, since we do have some new folks that may not have been at the last meeting, we are live streaming. If you could give just briefly an update of the environmental issue and then where we are with everything going forward.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Madam Chair, Commission members, my name is Joe D'Amico, and I'm the Director for the Virginia Department of General Services. And we are the agency that is working to obtaining the property on Browns Island that has been donated by the city for the placement of the Freedom Monument. As part of the donation agreement and for the state to close on the property, the state had to perform an environmental study of the property that we would be taking ownership of. When we performed that environmental study, there were two chemicals that were found in the soils, one being chromium and one being arsenic. They were found at a level below industrial standards for remediation, but slightly above residential standards for remediation. And the remediation that was suggested by our environmental engineer was more of a voluntary remediation effort. So DGS, working with the Office of the Attorney General, determined that the best way forward was to move forward with a remediation of that site. As we looked at the property that was being donated to the Commonwealth, the balance of the property, of course, is owned by Browns Island, controlled by Venture Richmond. Come to find out in our research that for the state to take ownership of the quarter-acre property donated by the city, that we the state needed to have an agreement with the city as it relates to a soil management plan. If other contaminants would be found on the city property, the balance of Browns Island, how would those soils be managed? How would they be handled? Because our property is adjacent and actually is part of the Browns Island property, the state required a soil management plan that both the city and the state would be in agreement with. So Where we left off at our last meeting was that DGS pull a meeting together with city leaders, and we would start identifying what tasks needed to be completed to get us to that soil management plan and to an agreement that both the state and the city would be comfortable with in moving forward for the closure of the property on Browns Island. So since our meeting, DGS on November 30th met with members of the city of Richmond, officials, including their legal team, as well as the Office of the Attorney General. And what we did is we identified work groups. Both the city and DGS identified work groups that would be tasked with identifying what tasks need to be completed by both parties, the city and the state, for both parties to be comfortable moving to closure on the property. That we would develop a timeline to complete those tasks, and we would identify any estimated costs associated with those tasks. From that meeting, we agreed that then the next steps would be on December 18th, there will be a progress meeting whereby the city work group and the state work group will update myself and leadership from the city on the progress on completing those three items: identifying tasks, develop a timeline, and identify any estimated additional cost. We would receive an update on the 18th on that progress, in that we're all working towards having the task identified, the timeline completed, and the estimated cost pulled together before the beginning of the 2021 General Assembly session. So again, what we will have is that information we believe necessary that come mid-January, I can come back to the commission and provide an update then on how much time we believe it will take to complete these tasks and what additional cost, if any, would be identified. We are putting a date out there for the timeline to achieve a closure of the property and to have an install of the monument by the end of the summer of 2021. But I throw that out as for discussion, but I still need to wait to see what the two work groups come back with as the time they need to complete the task. So, Madam Chair, that's the update I have for you and the commission. I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you. Before we get to questions, I'll give two quick additional updates. The actual monument itself is completed and is in storage, just waiting to be able to be installed. So the holdup now is the soil mitigation, the transfer of the property, and then once all of that is completed, based on the contract we entered into and our discussions with the artist and the architect, this shouldn't change. I think it'll take about 2 weeks, sort of weather notwithstanding. It should take about 2 weeks for the monument to actually be installed. So we are getting there. While we had originally hoped that this monument would be installed and unveiled in 2019, and now it looks like, hopefully, knock on wood, it will be in 2021. We do continue to get there. I have had conversations with the governor's office. We do have a preliminary estimate of what soil mitigation might cost. In the grand scheme of things, it is not a large amount, but we have preliminary discussions to see, if necessary, if that is something that could be included in the budget. But until we get that final estimate, you don't have much of an update on that, but that is a conversation being had. And so things are moving along, and the end is in sight. Any questions for Joe or myself on sort of the status of the monument itself or the site?
Madam Chair.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Lee.
You mentioned the end of summer 2021. I'm thinking of how we could tie this to a commemorative event. So I'm thinking June 10th, which is usually, I believe, the third Saturday in June. That might be pushing it, but if there is any possibility to tie it to a commemorative event, that heightens it, the visibility. And if not June, perhaps August. I don't remember the specific dates, the arrival of the first Africans, although that's in Fort Monroe, but still it ties to the larger Virginia story.
Okay. I believe that was the 21st, but we will definitely keep both of those in mind. All right, any other questions about the site or the monument itself? If not, Lily or Amigo, I'm not sure if either of you can give an update on our fundraising, or if you want me to do that.
I can tell you from the information that we have, we paid, the commission to date has paid about $651,000 toward the monument, and that includes the clearing of the space. I think there was a monument that was there before. We have these a total of about $332,000. That I think that since we in terms of available funding, I think we've and I haven't checked as of today, but we had raised through the Capital Foundation $134,703, and what has happened, I think, just as of the 19th of November, Madam Speaker, the Richard S. Reynolds Foundation has awarded a grant of $50,000, and that's payable actually in half of it by the 30th of June of this year, and the other half by the 30th of June 2022. So that's basically a snapshot of where we are now. And you might have some additional information.
I do. So that's the amounts that we have on hand. We were invited, and I'm afraid I don't have the name of the group. It'll take me a minute to pull it up. We were invited to apply for a grant in the amount of $200,000 from a foundation, and that application has been submitted. Which, if we get that grant, I think would take care of the outstanding amounts that would be owed on the monument. And I think the next payment is not the last payment. There's one more final payment will be what will go to the artist once the monument is installed. So we've got plenty of time before that has to be made, but hopefully we will hear in the next month or so about that grant proposal. But we had a meeting with the foundation executive director. Based on that meeting, they invited us to submit a grant for $200,000. So I feel pretty confident we will get that grant. In the meantime, we had wanted our fundraising efforts to include grassroots fundraising and also to include a component of community awareness, particularly around the individuals who are on the monument. And so we had been in discussions last year with Virginia State University and the University of Richmond to do events tied around the people on the monument with connections to those universities. So Virginia State University is where John Mercer Langston, who was one of the individuals on the monument, he was their first president, and they now have a center named after him. And so we were originally looking to do a panel discussion tied into their Founders Day about John Mercer Langston, and we were exploring showing the movie or the docuseries 400 Years Later, Free-ish, one episode of which is about the monument, and that's a product of the HBCU Storytellers Project, and they had students from Virginia State participating in that. Like everything else, COVID sort of put those discussions on hold, but I have circled back around to the president's office at Virginia State. They are still interested in doing an event. They've had a personnel change, and so I don't have much more of an update other than doing an event around their Founders Day in March is not impossible, but right now is difficult. So they are still interested in an event, but we don't yet have a date around it. And then we need to reach back around to University of Richmond. They have the papers of Wyatt T. Walker, who was Dr. King's chief of staff, and is also someone who's being honored on the monument. And so they were interested in exploring an event highlighting Reverend Walker, and but with COVID and we have not gotten very far with those discussions. So that is probably something that if it goes forward would be in first semester of next academic year. But both universities are still interested in exploring some sort of an event that would have a fundraising component to it. And so that is the fundraising update, unless there are any questions. I don't see any hands. Okay. I'm going to skip the history of lynching work group for a minute, but this is our last meeting before the 2021 session. And usually the commission will have commemorating resolutions if there is a significant anniversary coming up. And at our last meeting, we voted to have a commemorating resolution for the 150th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act of 1871, which I believe Delegate McQuinn agreed to carry in the House. And I believe I'm carrying in the Senate, unless one of my Senate colleagues wants to take it, which I'm happy to let them do. We have also been requested or asked if we would be interested in doing and this would require a resolution, and the question really becomes, do we do it this year or wait until next year? But with the discussion about monuments and statues in public spaces and in the Capitol, there is an idea now about honoring Senator Yvonne Miller, who was the first African-American woman elected to the General Assembly, commissioning a statue or a bust of her. And so I was approached to ask if that's something the commission would be interested in doing. And so I bring that to the commission. Again, this is going to be a short session with bill limits, and we are still in the middle of building a statue right now. But I do want to bring this to the commission to ask if this is something we want to do. Is it something we want to do, but maybe not this year? And so I'd like to open that up for discussion.
Madam Chair, this is Delegate Paul.
Yes, Delegate Paul.
I think that is an amazing thing. And I certainly would hope that we could get that through this session, especially considering how the power is set up. And I don't think we may want to hesitate and wait because we may miss out on the opportunity. And so I think that is something that we should push forward. And if it's just a resolution, I would be open to carrying that if one of the other colleagues wouldn't want to carry it.
Okay, Dr. Lee.
I think it's important, particularly this year when we've commemorated the ratification of the 19th Amendment, to carry this forward. And is this something that we would want partnerships on? Because I'm thinking of the sorority, various National Council of Negro Women, various organizations that would most likely get behind something like this. So, partnership, something.
Probably. So to be clear, it would be a resolution to begin the process of putting a monument in the Capitol, which would have to be paid for, and by us, and that is kind of how we initiated the Emancipation Monument, although that was really done through a budget amendment. But it would be to authorize us to begin the process of building that statue, and could require, I think it count, and Amigo, this is my question to you. I believe that would be a substantive resolution that would count towards bill limits, or could be done as the Emancipation Monument was through the budget and not require a separate bill. Can you give us some guidance on that?
Yeah, I think it certainly could be done as a budget amendment, and that way it wouldn't be a as we did with the Emancipation Monument. I think it would, in my view, be a substantive amendment, because I think a substantive resolution, because it's more than just a commending a memorial. It'd be causing some action to happen. So either way would get it accomplished.
Okay. Well, it sounds like Delegate Cole is volunteering to take the lead on the House side. Would any of my Senate colleagues want to take the lead on the Senate side, or do you want to delegate that to me?
I'd be willing to do that, Senator, but if you prefer to do it, or if Senator Locke prefers to do it, that would be fine too. I'm just available if you need me to. I'd be honored to.
I see Senator Locke kind of raising, but
I'm at my limit. If I'm not, I'll take it. I need to check.
Okay.
Well,
and if you are, and we'll work that out on the Senate side. I think normally whenever we have any commission legislation, we have all of the commission members sign on as chief co-patrons. And so we'll work together on the Senate side to see, should this be a resolution? If so, who can carry it? Or should we just handle this through the budget? But I think I officially need to motion and a vote to authorize the commission to begin the process of commissioning a monument honoring Senator Yvonne Miller. So is there a motion to do that?
So moved.
I would that we commission, I would move that.
I second that. I just can't raise my hand.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, great. And so I will work with Amigo and Lily to get that process started. So every year, Virginia Union hosts a community leaders breakfast, and normally at the December meeting we vote to buy a table and to attend. And this year that breakfast will have to be virtual. They will not have tables, but they are still seeking sponsorships. And so we have been asked if we would do our normal sponsorship of $2,000 of the Community Leaders Breakfast, which will be on January 18th as part of their MLK Day celebrations. And so if that is something the commission would like to do, then I would entertain a motion to purchase a sponsorship.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would move that we do the $2,000 sponsorship that we've done in the past.
Okay. Is
I
there a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and I'm not sure how they're going to handle attendance. I mean, in the past, usually we just send them a list of names to sit at the table. I assume they'll give us a link or something for people to participate. So, Lily, once we get—
Excuse me, Senator.
Oh, yes.
This is Ricardo. Channel 6 is going to show pre-recordings on the King holiday.
Okay.
So everybody in the world can see it, the King holiday at 9 o'clock on TV.
Okay. Good. Then no one needs to do anything but tune in. All right. And then let me go back. Even some of you saw live the History of Lynching in Virginia work group. If you give me a minute, I will pull up my notes and tell you. All right. So the History of Lynching in Virginia work group met this morning to go over the schedule and planning for 2021. We have in the works 4 events that we would like to do in 2021 in the spring, and we are tentatively holding April 10th. We would do an event targeting the Richmond area. It would be virtual, giving an overview of the history of lynching in Virginia. So it's not specifically tied to Richmond. As far as its focus, it would be covering the topic statewide, but it would begin with a teacher workshop centered around a documentary called An Outrage that 2 of our commission members at Feld Studios issued a few years ago. We would have an afternoon walking tour around some significant sites in the city of Richmond that would, again, have a virtual component, a full screening and discussion of An Outrage. And then as part of that, we would also invite individuals to conduct interviews with some of the elders who have ties to lynchings that may have occurred in the Commonwealth and begin collecting those oral histories. The second event would be a virtual discussion in the Hampton Roads area that Dr. Cassandra Newby-Alexander is tentatively planning for September. Then we would do an event in November in Culpeper, but focused on the entire planning district that includes Madison, Rappahannock, Fauquier, Spotsylvania, I think, focused around the anniversary of a lynching that occurred on November the 18th, but highlighting lynchings that occurred in that entire planning district for next November. And then we are focused on an event in Danville, probably, and I did not write down that date. Lily, did you? Sorry, I did not.
That one would probably be sometime in the summer. They wanted to involve teachers in it.
That's right. Thank you for that. And then we heard a presentation from Preston Mitchell with the Wise County Community Remembrance Project. And this, in case you're wondering whether the work that the commission does, and particularly these resolutions that we pass, actually goes anywhere other than the commission or in Richmond. In Wise County, they were trying to do some community commemorative events around 3 lynchings that occurred there, and got some community backlash, and frankly, their plans did not get anywhere. But when the commission in February of 2019, we initiated a resolution passed by the General Assembly expressing profound regret for racial terror lynchings that occurred in the Commonwealth and the lack of prosecution thereof. And Preston said that really spurred action and attention in Wise County that led to a working group put together to begin a grassroots effort to memorialize the lynchings that occurred there. They have been working with EJI to get their monuments. And so you should all be very pleased that our efforts to raise awareness around lynchings in Virginia, and particularly that resolution, in fact, sparked a grassroots movement after stalled efforts in Wise County to commemorate that awful history there and talk about how it still impacts that community going forward. So we have invited Preston to be a part of the working group and keep us posted. They are not only working to get their EJI monuments, but they are working to get a highway marker from the Department of Historic Resources. And so he will keep us posted on those efforts. And to the extent there are events, we will make sure that the commission gets invited to those events. I think that's the major update from the working group. Any questions on the Lynching in Virginia project? Or comments from any of the working group members on anything I missed?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Dr. Lee.
May I let the larger group know that we are looking at ways to engage teachers in this difficult history.
Yes, and you reminded me, as a result of the governor's commission on teaching a complete and accurate African-American history in our schools, the history of racial terror lynchings has been included in the standards for Virginia history and U.S. history. And so that starts with this academic year. And we are looking for ways to help educate teachers on how to teach this history. And then once we get them to a point where they're comfortable teaching that history, we are exploring having a student essay contest, an art contest for next school year. So more to come on that. Any questions or comments on that? All right. If not, we are up to, is there any other business anyone would like to raise for the commission? Okay, hearing none, before I entertain a motion to adjourn, we will not be meeting during the General Assembly session because I think our staff who work, particularly those that work in legislative services, would probably quit if we tried to. But this is likely to be this is a short session. Historically, it may possibly be shorter than usual. So we probably will not meet until late March, early April. And so we will have lots to talk about when we come back. But if there is no other business, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Well, before you leave, I know this has been a very unusual and difficult year for everyone. And so I hope that you all are getting some respite in the holiday season. I wish you a very happy, healthy, and safe holiday season and new year. And thank you all for your service on the commission.
Thank you also.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank